Hey folks, for today's episode of Let's Chill and Talk About Art Related Stuff, I wanted to take a trip down memory lane. Kind of. I have this iBook G4 here. Now, this computer is very important to me. This was basically the first laptop that I ever owned personally. We actually had two of these things when I was growing up. One got stolen, but that's a whole different story for another time. But we got another one. And around 2009, this thing was already an outdated machine. My folks gave this machine to me, and I did all sorts of stuff on this thing. I had an old digital camera. I did tons of stop motion animation on this thing using an iBook G4. I wrote the very, very first version of my book, The Lost Nation Saga, on this. Of course, it was much different back in those days, but this is kind of like the machine where I guess I became more literate when it came to using the internet and navigating social media, if you count DeviantArt as social media. But yeah, this machine is important to me. What I didn't have back in those days was a graphics tablet. Now, I'll get into this a little bit more, but I wasn't even really necessarily aware that graphics tablets could be used by your average person. I thought it was like a professional thing. And I didn't get my first graphics tablet until I was 16, and it was a whole thing. I basically didn't really mess with digital art in earnest until I was much, much older. But I've got here a 2005 Wacom tablet. It's the Graphire 4. I got this on eBay for like about 30 bucks. It was pretty inexpensive, especially considering its age. And this is a 2004 512 megabyte of RAM iBook G4 running the old PowerPC. So it was really cool, just kind of like messing with older technology and seeing just how much digital art has changed over the years. It's really interesting. There's this idea that, even amongst traditional artists today, I would say that traditional artists and digital artists get along a lot more these days. But back in the days, I do remember there was a time where being a digital artist, it was considered cheating. It was considered like a lower form of art. But it seems to be the opposite case where nowadays, doing digital art, at least in my personal opinion, even though it's still difficult, it's actually a lot more easier than it was back in these days, because back in these days, especially if you had a weaker machine like this, getting into digital art was a lot more difficult to get into. In fact, one of the reasons why it took me so long to transition from traditional to digital art was because I just had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how keyboard commands worked. I wasn't aware of how widespread stylus tablets were back in those days. So I stuck with traditional art, I should say, all the way up until, I would say, roughly 2017, especially going into 2018. That's when I really started to get my feet wet with doing digital art. But yeah, that's kind of like old news now. Nowadays, I think both traditional and digital artists can agree that it still requires a fundamentally human aspect to it. Even with the technological advancement, especially with the advent of AI-generated slop, you're just taking an AI prompt and scraping pre-existing stuff, both traditional and digital, to make all this junk that's just flooding the internet. And now it's getting to the point where even the AI models are now basically doing this inbreeding where they're referencing themselves, which is why they constantly need human input to constantly feed it. It's like a never-ending machine that gorges itself. But that's a topic for another time. I just find it so fascinating how far technology has come. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Photoshop these days, especially with the AI slop and subscription stuff, I dropped Photoshop long before even the whole AI implementation thing. I've been a Clip Studio Paint user basically for almost 10 years now. But yeah, I just want to get into it. So let's go ahead and roll to the next reel. Okay, so I just want to clarify that this thing is not new in the box. It is used, but as far as I'm aware, this is pretty complete, and you can see here the date is 2005, so it is definitely in line with the iBook I'm going to be testing this with. But yeah, let's go ahead and open this up. This is a first experience. I've never seen one of these older ones before. The very first tablet I owned was an old 2011 Vis tablet, or actually I don't know what year it was. That's a story for another day, but yeah, this is really cool. I was always under the impression as a kid that in order to use a graphics tablet, you actually had to work for a major graphic design or art company, and that they had to be distributed almost kind of like those old workstations. I had no idea as a child that you could actually buy these things just off of the shelf. I wish I had known that earlier, but it is what it is. So let's go ahead and open this up. Oh, okay, this is on a completely different thing of plastic. And, oh, Okay, it looks like we're getting the Dank Pods experience. This, okay, ooh, I can feel that on my fingers. This thing is really sticky. Yeah, I mean, this is a 21-year-old piece of technology, but ooh, it's literally, it's leaving sticky residue on my fingers. Ooh, that's bad. I mean, I'm not gonna use it anyway, but what about the stylus? Oh, this is interesting. So the stylus is completely fine. Like, there's no residue at all. So I don't know if it's because this was used a lot. I think I might have actually accidentally ruined this thing. I mean, I have a feeling even with wearing gloves, it would be nasty. Like, ugh. What's weird is that the scroll wheel is pretty okay, but the fate of all ThinkPads is a ThinkPad fan myself, but the stylus is completely fine. Like, there's no sticky residue there. So that's interesting. I'll get to the main event. Oh, this has still got the original plastic. So yeah, whoever owned this did, in fact, seem to take good care of it. Oh, this is really cool. Oh, got some software too. What's this? Windows, Macintosh, OS X. Okay, great. Yeah, this is complete in the box. Let me see here. Software bundle, CD, Adobe Photoshop Elements. Won't be using that. But yeah, this is really, really cool. Like I said, I wish I had known. I knew graphics tablets were a thing. I just didn't know you could actually own them. Oh, this is a plastic covering. Okay, and this is the actual tablet. And yeah, this thing looks brand new. Like, it wasn't even used or hardly ever used. It's got the old school transparent USB. So yeah, this is really neat. So let's go ahead and fire this thing up. Okay, so we've got my iBook G4 going here. We're going to go ahead and see how we can set this thing up. Get the tablet here, got the USB rocking. Sorry if I accidentally bumped the tripod. This is kind of like a very Spartan setup right here. Let me see here. Go ahead and plug this boy in. Oh god. Okay, so I got the iBook G4, and I got the tablet plugged in via USB. So let's go ahead and get the software here, Graphire. Go ahead and plug this in, see what we got. Apparently the stylus came with this little stand that is pretty standardized nowadays. Let's see what we got here. That good old-fashioned CD drive sound, man, never gets old. Let's see, your tablet CD, install. Okay, pretty straightforward. And it's just bouncing up and down. Wacom, or Wacom, or however you pronounce it. To this day, I have never, except for this older unit, I've never owned a Wacom tablet. My very first tablet was a Vis tablet, and it actually wasn't that bad. But I have a whole story about how terrible I was at digital art. I felt like it was way too difficult, which is interestingly enough because a lot of people, I guess you could say more traditional artists, which I started off as, they said that digital art was too easy, was kind of like cheating, but I actually found that to be the opposite. One of the reasons why I kind of avoided it for decades, because I just simply wasn't good at it, and I had no idea what I was doing. Digital art and traditional art, in my personal opinion, neither one is easier or more difficult. It's just simply a different medium. Wait, what? Hold on a second. Okay, sorry about that. I had to, do some weird stuff with my password. I forgot it. I forgot what I even set it up as, but I fixed it. But anyway, just getting back to the whole digital art, traditional art thing. It's simply different types of media. In some ways, traditional art is easier because you can literally just pick up a pencil, some paper, and just get right to work. And in other ways, digital art is easier because I guess it makes preservation of the original sketches more easier, but I think they're both equally challenging in their own ways. Unlike, AI generated slop where you can just prompt it to scrape the internet, and traditional art isn't even completely safe because people can, find a way to fake it and replicate it, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, for the longest time, I think my very first time trying to do digital art was obviously working with Microsoft Paint when I was a child, and then I tried to. I did use Photoshop on this thing back in like 2009, but again, I didn't know how to work with it. I thought it was only for editing photos, not for actually drawing. It wasn't until I reached my late teen years that I figured out that you could really do full-on illustration using a computer and a tablet. And I liked using the Vis tablet, but unfortunately I had a really gimped copy of Manga Studio, the previous version of Clip Studio Paint. It was a version where you couldn't even save it, so I was like, nah, forget this, and I didn't try it again for a number of years. So that's it. I'll get into that more later on. Okay, so in all these pictures, it shows the graphics tablet with the cover on it, so I'm actually going to put this thing back on, because I think that's probably what this matting is for. I think that's what that's for, so I'm actually going to put that back on. Don't think I'm doing this right, which is the story of my life. No idea what I'm doing, I just kind of wing it. So I got that going, and then all these instructional things. I do have a mouse, but it's not it's not a normal mouse. It's kind of like one of the extenders that you use for like an iMac, which is annoying. So it's not even long enough to use properly. I will not be using the mouse because that thing is melting as we speak. Tablet wheel. I have no idea what this is all about. I don't feel like doing all this stuff. Is there a way to go back? Wait, do I have to use the mouse in order to get this thing to work? Hold on, let me try using this with the stylus. Oh, it works. Cool. Oh, with the scroll wheel. See, I have no idea what I'm doing. Not paying attention. Well, this is neat. That's really cool. So is that it? Are we done? Pen switches, keystrokes. Okay, I think that's it. So let's go ahead and take this thing out. Come on. Maybe I can't. Maybe I need to exit first. There we go. Let's go ahead and try using this thing. I am not going to actually draw something in this position. I'll have to like do that in another setting. But let's go ahead and open up Adobe Photoshop CS2. Ooh. Get my thing all messed up here. Go ahead and open that up. This is the version that I had installed on my, well, it technically wasn't even my laptop to begin with. It was my mom's, and she gave it to me. She let me use it. This was back in like 2008, going into 2009. I was like 13 years old, so I've been, using computers pretty much regularly ever since I was, basically in kindergarten. But this was the very first laptop like I actually owned, like I was allowed to have on my own. And yeah, I did a lot of stuff on this thing. I did stop motion animation. I discovered DeviantArt using this machine for better and for worse. Making YouTube videos. I had an old Apetech camera. That's what I used to make stop motions in the first place. Let me see here. Go ahead and open a new one. 1080 by 1080, 300 pixels per inch. All right, let's see if this works. All right, let's go ahead and try it out. And yeah, it works. It's pressure sensitive, man. Looking at this thing, it's both really cool, but also makes me kind of sad that as a kid I had no idea what it was doing, because this would have been really cool to have. But that's life. Yeah, the eraser works. The eraser works just fine. Yeah, this is really, really, really neat. But as I was saying before, I never really owned a Wacom tablet. I had a Vis tablet, and again, because I wasn't familiar with digital art, I didn't really use it that much. I had no idea what it was doing. And then in 2016, I got my hands on a Surface Pro 3, or a Surface Pro 2, a used one on eBay for about $300. And that technically was a Wacom tablet because it had a Wacom built in. So I pretty much used that kind of like to really start my digital art journey going into 2018 and especially 2019. And then after that, I got Surface Go, which was technically a weaker version, but it didn't have a fan, and that was running the what is it called? Microsoft's N-Trig. So, and then after that, I got a regular Surface Pro 5, which was also running N-Trig, and now I use an XP pen tablet, which is basically kind of like the same thing as this, but with the screen. So my digital art journey has just been kind of all over the place, but yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so I went into the settings and I worked with a couple of keyboard commands. I tried to kind of replicate my setup on Clip Studio Paint, but there's no way to like use that method of rotating the canvas with the stylus. You have to do it through key commands, and a lot of tools that I use as kind of like subtools. You can't really do that on here. Like you can't add on top and have duplicates. Like for example, on Clip Studio Paint, I use the E command for zooming and rotating and moving the canvas. You can't do that here. You can only do it one key command at a time. Same thing with flipping the canvas. On Clip Studio Paint, all I have to do is press one key and it flips it. Here you have to actually set it to control. So same thing with the numbers too. On Clip Studio Paint, I use 1 and 2 to increase brush sizes. You can't do that on here because they're already in use, so I had to set them to other keys. So it's going to be kind of a Herculean task to see if I can get this to work. But let's go ahead and see if we can just sketch something up here. Let's see here. No, I don't want that. One thing that really helped me learn how to use digital art was... oh, there's a bug up here. It was actually kind of setting my computer to, I guess you could say, like common like video game key commands. It was that was kind of like what hacked my brain into getting used to it. But yeah, I'm just kind of getting a feel for it. I already forgot how I used the. Oh, okay. So you can only zoom out or zoom in. You can't zoom out. Oh man, yeah. This maybe it's a good thing I didn't discover digital art when I was a kid because I would have had no idea how to use this. This is a much older version. Let me see. How do I, how do I zoom out? A control minus. So you have to kind of like. Yeah, there's a zoom in tool, but there's no zoom out tool. Oh, this is already a spectacular failure. I love it though. It just goes to show how far digital art has come. But let me see here. Let's go ahead and use the let's go ahead and use the brush tool instead. Oh man. Let's see what we can do here. Ugh. Oh man, it's so jank. Yeah. I know that I do have a copy of Manga Studio EX2 on here, but it was from the Mac repository. But it didn't have the serial number, so I can't get it to work. Maybe I can find a copy lying around. Oh, yeah. This is rough. This is rough, man. Me sitting at a really weird angle probably isn't helping, but sheesh. Can I not move the canvas? Or hold on a second. I can move the image, but I can't actually move the canvas itself. Oh man. Let's see here. I would have. Oof. This is bad. Oh. The problem is that these older tablets too, they don't have very good stabilization on them, so it's like, yeah, this is this is. I'm sure if I figured out how to work with it, it would be fine, but yeah, this is rough. This is really rough. Yeah, so for anybody, especially like the whole debate surrounding whether digital art is easier or much more difficult, or if it's cheating, like let me tell you guys, it is not. This is one of the reasons, oh my god, this is one of the reasons why I avoided it for so long, because it was very difficult, like, especially back in those days. What's funny is that back in the days, people have become a lot more tolerant of digital art, despite the fact that it is technically a lot easier now with how advanced the tool is, but back in those days they said that digital art was cheating, and let me tell you, it is not easier to work with older 20-year-old software, man. Oh my god, what am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing, hold on. I have no idea how people... Wait. Step backward. Control-Shift-Z? Wait, what? Control-Z, right? Edit. Oh, I'm just gonna do it manually. Oh my god, this is so bad. Okay, yeah, this is actually giving me flashbacks of when I first tried to attempt this back in 2011 when I was 16 years old, and I was just like, forget it, I'm just gonna stick to paper. But yeah, digital art is not easier. I'm just putting splotches on this thing at this point. Okay, let's actually oh my god. Let's actually try to attempt to do something here. Step backward. So stupid. Oh man. This is rough. And then control V is how you flip the canvas. Oh man. And then view, zoom in. I'm so used to having like easy manipulation of the canvas. This is difficult. This is really rough. His face is all jacked up. I don't even know what I'm trying to draw here. Like a head. It. The fact that this is a 20-year-old laptop too also doesn't help. Let's see. Oh man. Oh, this is so difficult. Oh man. Okay, guys, sorry, I actually misspoke. There actually is a way to zoom in and out, so let me go ahead and draw this. Go ahead and just draw, like, I don't know, a circle, whatever. Yeah, draw just like a bunch of random stuff. So go ahead and, oh my, I don't remember what I set it to. So there is actually a zoom out right here. And then zoom in. But it's all the way on the top, all the way up here. You probably can't even see it. But yeah, there is a way to zoom in and out. It just, you have to finagle with it just a little bit. Yeah, but I didn't notice it because the wonders of having ADHD and having amblyopia, having horrible eyesight, it makes you miss a lot of important details that would be obvious to the average normal person. But that's usually how it goes. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of lock in and see if I can draw something. I was trying to draw a more complicated character design, and I think, especially for how old this machine is, I mean, this machine's older than probably some people watching this video. Same thing with this tablet. The iBook G4 was released in 2004. This thing was released in 2005. I mean, this machine's old enough to drink if it wanted to. So I'm going to lock in and see if I can draw stuff, and what better way to do that than to open up good old-fashioned iTunes with CoverFlow. So I got these retro style headphones. They're not retro. I think they came out within the last few years, but they're kind of like that, almost like that 1980s look. So a little bit anachronistic here. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and listen to some music while I'm doing this, man. And let me tell you, I can't get over how much I miss CoverFlow, man. This is back when Apple really felt like a multimedia company. Nowadays, it just feels like the iPhone company. But back in the days, you know, I don't mean to sound like a glaze or anything, but you know, you had the Steve Jobs era, and he was so much into, like, really kind of, like, merging technology with the arts, and you don't really see that today, not even with modern Apple. You know, everything is just so hyper-focused on the iPhone, and I guess you kind of get that spirit with the iPad Pro. You know, I keep thinking to myself, it would be so nice if Apple finally released a MacBook that had a touchscreen, kind of like what Surface did. I feel like in some ways Microsoft actually beat them to the punch with that, because they released a Microsoft tablet that ran Windows, but it also had a stylus on it, so you could use it as a convertible. And I wish Apple would release an iPad that could run Mac OS, or a MacBook that can maybe switch between the two different iOS and Mac OS operating systems. Like, if they released a MacBook or any type of Mac computer that ran Mac OS but also had a touchscreen on it, maybe like a new class of device, I would buy it immediately. I might actually transition from being a primarily Windows user to a Mac user if they did that, because I do like their software. I like how clean it is, even with the more modern, I guess you could say, flat design. Because, man, I miss the skeuomorphic design. But I wish that they would do that. But that's a story for another day. Let's go ahead and do some artwork. Okay, so here's my attempt to draw a chibi character. This is one of my characters from my book. Um, and it certainly kind of looked better than what I was attempting before, but I think the main thing that's messing me up with this tablet is that it's the jitter. It's the jitter and lack of stabilization. I'm sure there's a setting in here somewhere to mess with that, but it's just one of those things where, it's just one of those examples of technology objectively getting better. There's certain things about older technologies that are better than the new, especially when it comes to physical media ownership, that sort of thing. Back in the days where you could still use a computer to its fullest capacity, even when you weren't online. But I will say this. As bad as things are with Photoshop CC, I don't like the subscription thing. It's terrible. That's why I use Clip Studio Paint. But yeah, technology in this case has gotten better. It's come a long way. And it's also worth noting that I don't know how much this tablet was worth MSRP back when it first came out, but this is considered a budget tablet even when it first came out. And on top of that, this just isn't even a powerful computer. This is like 512 megabytes of RAM. Let me check actually. See, it takes forever to load. Yeah, 512 megabytes of DDR SD RAM, a PowerPC processor. So this isn't even a fast enough computer probably to run this thing. It probably shouldn't be running Photoshop and cover flow version of iTunes anyway. But yeah, it's still really cool. Would I still have become a digital artist had I had these tools when I was much younger? Oh god, I can't rightfully say that I would. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't have, but I think the main thing that messed me up, even to this very day, but one thing that really messed me up when I was a teenager is, number one, I didn't know what I was doing with digital art. I was still very much technologically illiterate in that regard. I wasn't aware of how to use key commands that well, so had you given this to me even younger, I don't think I would have been able to do this. And on top of that, I just wasn't that good at drawing. I'm still not very good at drawing, but yeah, it's really interesting to think about what, this is kind of like a thing with nostalgia. People sometimes feel like they're missing out. Like, people say, oh, I didn't grow up with this console, or I didn't grow up with this piece of technology, I really missed out. You really didn't. You worked with what you had back in those days, and I think, me, in my personal case, because I know people who are, much younger than I am, people who are teenagers, even back in those days, who were way better than I was, my own contemporaries. So, yeah, you just gotta kind of appreciate what you have. But yeah, it's been really cool going back down memory lane, using this old iBook, and just trying out this older tablet. Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. So what is really the final verdict with using this technology? Well, for me, it was just a fun experiment, but I really want to ask the question, can we cope with using older tech? I would say if it weren't for streaming services, if it weren't for the fact that everything has to be verified through keys, I actually think that we could still get by if, in some hypothetical situation, technology stopped progressing past 2010, or if there was some crazy, I don't know, 1984-ish ban on newer tech. I think we could still be okay. It really is an interesting question to ask, because nowadays, especially with AI causing everything to go up, SSDs, even regular hard drives, RAM, processors, graphics cards, the whole nine yards. You're starting to see this trend of companies releasing technology with only 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, for the last few years, only having 8 gigabytes of RAM was considered awful, and yeah, it is, but with the release of the MacBook Neo, we're only having 8 gigs of RAM, it's raising a really interesting conversation of how much do we actually need? Not just when it comes to HTML, CSS, things coming down to using Unreal Engine 5 and how poorly optimized a lot of these newer technologies are. It really makes me wonder, how much technology do we actually need? And we really need to consider, in my personal opinion, the importance of optimization, because I think one of the biggest reasons why we have so much bottlenecking issues when it comes to performance, especially when it comes to graphics, is the fact that things are so poorly optimized. Back in those days, every last kilobyte mattered. If you grew up like I did in the early 2000s, you no doubt remember going on places like Albino Black Sheep and Newgrounds. You would watch those old Flash cartoons. And back in those days, people would use machines like this with these older tablets, and they would still put out amazing, incredible independent material. posting stuff on Newgrounds, on the original version of YouTube, and that sort of thing. So it really just has been an interesting thought experiment to see how far we've come and what we need and what we don't need. I feel like with no longer getting physical media and with things being subscription based, we're losing a lot of what made technology and what made personal computers and what made the old internet so special. But that's really it in a nutshell, just kind of like me rambling. Again, I like to talk about these random topics, but I will go ahead and cap things off here, and I will see you guys next time.